In this presentation, we will be speaking about the factors that affect second language acquisition made by Jaylene Congora, Philip Garcia, and Graciela Flores. ESL is learning a second language after a first language is already established. As future ESL educators, we must be fully aware of the factors that affect the second language learning process in order to effectively teach our students. The factors that affect second language acquisition include aptitude, age, motivation, personality, intelligence, attitude, learning styles, identity, and ethnic group affiliation. What are these factors? Intelligence is how well someone can perform on a test. Research has shown that those with higher IQ test scores are predicted to be more successful in their second language acquisition than those who do poorer. Aptitude. Learners with high aptitude or the ability to learn quickly tend to be more successful in acquiring their second language. Personality. Personality can predict the success of a second language as well. Learners who are more extroverted are believed to be well suited to language learning. Attitude. A positive attitude cannot prove or predict a success in language learning. However, it has been linked to the willingness to keep learning. Motivation. Motivation can predict success due to how valuable a learner might perceive their second language and how motivated they are to learn it. Identity and group affiliation. This has an effect on the success of language learners. When there is a power imbalance with language, learners are less likely to be successful in that environment. For this presentation, we will focus on how personality and motivation affect second language learners and how, as educators, we can help our students overcome these challenges. In order to help answer challenging questions, we interviewed Ms. Ramirez, who has been a Spanish teacher for over 40 years and has immense experience working with students. The following excerpt is an interview with her.
My name is Maria Elida Ramirez. I am currently teaching at the Henry Ford Academy at the UTSA downtown campus. I've been teaching for 41 years in the Edgewood district, and I decided to go to a private institution or to see what it was like.
The first one was, do you remember some challenges that you had to face when learning a second language? And how did you learn your languages?
I do not believe in bilingual per se. In other words, the students are placed in a bilingual program and they're learning two languages simultaneously.
Mhm.
And from my experience, I've noticed that that is not as successful as having immersion. And a lot of people don't like immersion because you're going to be in an all English curriculum and you have to learn the language fast. But I don't see how else you can do it. Growing up in the 60s, I started elementary school. So this is going to age me, which I don't mind. You were punished for speaking Spanish, and I'm sure that you've heard that story. So in our family, our parents asked us not to speak Spanish at home. That way we would be speaking English throughout at home or at school. So I lost my Spanish and I had to relearn it in the 8th grade when we were offered Spanish 1 and 2. And it was quite difficult. But the teachers, basically all we did all day long, every single day, Jaylene, was just conjugate verbs, conjugate, conjugate, conjugate. We didn't have conversations. We did not read books. It was just conjugating. And I thought, how am I going to learn the language and I wanted to learn it because my relatives, my dad's side of the family lives in Colorado or lived in Colorado and Wisconsin. And my mom's side of the family, they originally were born here in Galveston, Texas, including my mom, but they moved to Mexico, to Monterrey, because of the discrimination here against Mexican Americans. It was pretty severe. And so my grandfather moved all the children to Mexico. And the hardest thing that I found learning Spanish is not being able to communicate with anybody in Spanish. So what I started doing was doing pen paling with my cousins in Monterrey, and I would ask them to correct my grammar. And it got to the point that I started correcting them in their grammar. And so pretty much it's the motivation, wanting to learn it. And you really have to be exposed to it. You cannot expect to learn it in a 45-minute period. There's just no way. There's just no way. You need the practice outside of the classroom.
While Ms. Ramirez spoke about her own experience with second language acquisition, she connected to the social cultural theory created by Vygotsky. According to this theory, the acquisition of a second language occurs due to social interactions and that speaking and writing mediates through thinking. This can only occur if the second language learner interacts with an interlocutor who is within their zone of proximal development. For Ms. Ramirez, communicating and writing letters to her cousins in Mexico, or her interlocutors, is how she acquired her second language.
Another question is, do you think personality affects second language acquisition?
Personality to me, definitely. If you're an introvert trying to learn a language where you have to speak to others, have to present in front of an audience, and you're an introvert, it's pretty difficult because you have to step out of your you know your zone and do something that you probably have never done before. Not only public speaking is very difficult for most people, but speaking in another language. And I recall having a student that I called on her to respond, and she immediately started crying. I don't know if you were in that class. And I was just like thrown. I was like, oh my gosh. And she was extremely, extremely shy. And I went over to her and I hugged her and I said, sweetie, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. You can probably talk to me, present to me on your own, one-to-one, either during class, or you can stay after class, or you can come before school, after school. And she says, I'll just come after school. And I was like, that's fine. So it's a part of scaffolding. You start one-on-one with them, and then maybe they'll work with a partner next. I don't know if you remember the activities that we did think and pair, share with your partner. And then we worked in groups of 3, we worked in groups of 4, and so on and so forth, so that the students could get to know each other better and have that confidence, gain that confidence to be able to speak to someone else besides the teacher. But yes, personality does have something to do with it.
The affective filter hypothesis, credited to Stephen Krashen, an expert in linguistics, declares that a student's anxiety, low self-esteem, or lack of motivation can cause a mental block preventing the successful acquisition of a second language. When Ms. Ramirez was asked if personality affects second language acquisition, she had a student who showed the affective filter hypothesis. The student was called on to present during class and immediately started crying. This can be from anxiety or from low self-esteem that can cause students to not be successful. Ms. Ramirez gave comfort to her and gave her the option to do a one-on-one instead. As educators, we must come up with different strategies to help students be successful despite these challenges.
Motivation to me is 90% of learning a language. You have to want to do it. You have to want to expose yourself to make mistakes. And one of the things that I try to promote in the classroom is that we're not perfect. Not even I'm perfect. And there are times that you're going to correct me, and I don't mind the corrections. I wanted students to gain, be comfort and feel that the classroom was a safe zone. Students come in with a lot of baggage, and that's why I tell students, sometimes I miss what they're wearing. I've gotten called into the office. You didn't catch that girl that was wearing a very low blouse, or you didn't catch that guy that was wearing such and such shirt. No, because I measure my students from the eyebrows up. What are they thinking? And their eyes tell me everything. If they're there to learn, or if they're tired, maybe they have a job. But what causes high anxiety And I think that it's when you're unprepared. And you're going to be unprepared if you have a job that keeps you up all night, if you have a boyfriend that's verbally or physically abusive, if you have a family that also does not contribute to your education and you don't have a place to study at home. Um, and then there's peer pressure, you know, and that comes from many, many areas. Many areas. I had a student that suffered from, and I would never think it, high anxiety because of his mother was always comparing him to the older sister. And he says, I don't have to do things her way, and I'm not going to. And I said, that's your prerogative. And I would, he says, you're the only teacher that never says, why aren't you like your sister? You know, and I said, because you're two different people, you know, and there is no comparison. I always tell students, you are you, and there's only one of you, but you're the one that has to improve you. Nobody else is going to be able to motivate you to do that. You have to want it. Just like with anything in life.
As Ms. Ramirez said, many students come in with baggage, and this affects second language acquisition. These are known as external factors, and they include the curriculum, culture and status, access to native speakers, support at home, and competition. Overall, the factors of aptitude, motivation, personality, intelligence, learning styles, attitudes, identity and ethnic group affiliation, and external factors should all be considered in second language acquisition. Through this presentation, we have gained many teaching strategies that can overcome these factors. Some of them include creating a safe environment in the classroom, offering alternatives to projects that may be intimidating, be tolerant of errors, and offer plenty of opportunities for language learners to communicate with English speakers. Now that we have concluded our presentation, what teaching strategies will you take away from this? How will you accommodate and help your own English learning students? These are questions that educators must always try to answer.